Looking to land your next UX job? These are some questions that you should be asking, but aren't. What's up, Lover Researchers? It's Kevin. Welcome back to another video, and I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. Today, I sit down with Noam Segal. He's the Director of User Research at Wealthfront, previously at Airbnb, has a PhD in psychology, really cool guy. He's spoken at research conferences. One of my favorite talks from him is how to have a child's mindset, which I thought was really applicable to thinking critically as a researcher. So be sure to check that out on YouTube. I'll link that up here and in the description below. Be sure to check it out. Speaking of which, Noam also has a YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe to his channel as well. And so, without further ado, hope you enjoy. What's up, Lover Researchers? It's Kevin. Welcome back to another video, and today I got a really special guest, Noam Segal. Happy to have him today on the channel. Welcome, Noam.
Thanks, Kevin, and the feeling's mutual. It's really good to be here. My pleasure.
Likewise. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about questions we don't get usually from aspiring user researchers or those looking to get in the field, but we think questions that should be asked more. And considering crazy times of layoffs and furloughs, I know the feeling. I think it's a really important topic to cover today.
Yeah, for sure, Kevin. I mean, it's a time of reflection, I think, for many of us, and wondering about next steps and next roles. And some of us are more experienced in interviewing, some of us less so. But to your point, there are just these few questions that I don't often get as a hiring manager. And I just wish people would ask themselves those questions when they were applying, because I think it would make them such a better applicant, a more appealing applicant, someone who I would fight for in the rooms where we decide who gets an offer and who doesn't. It's really about just three simple things, and we'll talk about a few more things, but for me, it all starts with three simple things that if anyone can nail those three things, that's it. Basically, it just makes everything that much easier. So I'm excited to talk about these things.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about those things too. I've been helping a couple folks lately, and I know you have as well. And I actually did some interviews recently, so this is top of mind. So let's jump right into it. I'm curious to hear, Noam, what those top three things are.
Yeah, so let's start this with the first question, which is, where do I apply, and why does that matter? So the reason we bring this up, I think, is that often these mentorship conversations around interviewing and how I should do it, they start with, what should I be doing to be a better candidate? What should I be learning? What should I be reading? What should I be watching on YouTube, perhaps? But I would suggest that's the wrong starting point. I would suggest the right starting point is thinking about, where am I applying and why? And there are a bunch of different characteristics that companies can have that can really make a huge difference in not just your experience, but even just the chances of you ever succeeding to get your foot in the door in one of those companies. So I'll give an example. I came to Silicon Valley after getting my PhD. So I was coming out of academia. And I didn't realize this at the time, but it turns out that certain types of companies are much more likely to hire academics than others. Typically, these are larger companies that have an entire recruiting team, a university recruiting team dedicated to recruiting people like, at the stage that I was at the time. Whereas small to medium businesses, especially small startups, they don't have the resources or the time to train people and give them the mentorship they need in order to grow into the role. And so a lot of people I've spoken to have invested significant time in applying to these companies when, in fact, they didn't have much of a chance in the first place. And it's just a shame that they invested time and effort in those applications rather than others that could have worked out better. So that's one example. Another example is around B2B versus B2C. So for those who don't know, there are B2B businesses, business to business businesses. Sorry for the... These are companies that are serving other businesses, whereas B2C is business to consumer. These are businesses serving consumers like you and me. And the experience in those companies is very different. And we can jump into why that is. But this is the sort of thing that, especially when you're early in your career, I'm not sure you realize that that's even a thing or that can matter. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, now you bring up really good points in terms of whether it's a late stage or early stage company. Smaller companies don't have those resources to train you. And a lot of juniors, like you said, might spend time to apply to those. And it's really important to kind of reflect where you're at and what you want to do in terms of, are you able to take on those aspects that are not very clear, those ambiguous situations? They might not even have a good understanding of what user research is. And so I think in smaller companies, you're not just going to do the research, you're going to have to play a lot of those leadership roles as well. In larger companies, in my experience at least, I mean, UX research is more accepted. You're expected to do more of the job. You don't really have to fight, so to speak. Of course, you're going to have to be ready to answer questions such as, what do you do and when a stakeholder challenges your research? So think about, how you want to grow. If you're looking for a mentor to help you grow in your career, then understand if that company has that kind of resource for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think there are at least two more important points around this question of where you apply. One, to your point, is around mentorship. Mentorship is such an incredible driver engine of growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important, especially early on, to get incredible mentorship. And that really depends on the size of the team you're joining and the individuals in it and who your manager will be. Obviously, your manager will be, an important mentor to you, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crucial to get signal on that in any way possible and to do your research really carefully about how big the team is, how it's structured, who the people are in it, and will you be able to get the mentorship you need in order to grow? And it doesn't even really matter what stage you're at in your career. We're all continuously growing. We all need mentorship or could use it, even if we don't realize we need it. So that's a really important point. Another thing is that, especially if it's your first role, I would suggest that where you eventually land is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to get a role with an incredible company, a known brand name, a company that's, pretty hot right now, that can be a great way to just fast forward, fast track your career, get tons more opportunities down the line. It's a very strong signal of your qualities as a candidate later on when you're looking for your second, third, or fourth role. I mean, I've worked with people who have had unbelievable careers at some of the largest, most incredible companies in tech, whether it's in Silicon Valley or elsewhere. And it's a bias that we have, honestly. It's called prestige bias. It's
Mm-hmm.
unfair. We should probably ignore it.
Yeah.
And yet, I think the bias is here to stay. And I think that if you're able to, and if that's where your aspirations are, I would suggest pushing yourself at least as to as much as you can to get that first or second incredible role in a special company that's doing something really foundational, really important, hopefully socially and world positive. If you can find those things, it's going to make an incredible impact on your career.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're able to get that as your first role, go for it. I had a call yesterday with someone who had a similar question. Like, she had to decide between two roles. One was like really startup. There's no UX team. She wasn't really sure if she would do well in there. And the other one was, a little bit more resources in that aspect, but it was unpaid. And that's another aspect. So for her, it was great that she had these opportunities. I know a lot of people would love to have any kind of opportunity show up and have to make the decision.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I said was, what's meaningful for you to do? If you're strapped for, financially, take that into account. Are you able to afford the unpaid thing? If you feel that work is more meaningful to you and financials isn't a problem, I would say follow your guts, follow your heart. I think another point that goes into this is when I was in my journey into UX research, I applied to hundreds of jobs. I got rejected from hundreds of jobs. I was willing to take any job that came to me at one point, and I got offered something that I didn't really care for. It hurt me, but I ended up kind of turning it down because it just didn't align with my values. If you're an aspiring researcher and you've been at this for a while, it's really tempting to take the first thing that comes to your door, but really make sure it aligns with your values and what's meaningful for you to do.
I couldn't agree more. I think we are very fortunate right now that the field of UX research is burgeoning. There are incredible opportunities out there, no matter what you care about and what motivates you. There are just stellar opportunities out there. Um, Obviously, we're recording this when it's a tough time and there's a global pandemic going on, and so opportunities are maybe a bit different than they would typically be, and just want to be sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But in general, we do have the privilege of choosing to work for companies that we believe in, whose mission resonates with us, companies that align with our values, and that can make such a difference on the quality of your work, your ability to showcase your interest and genuine excitement for the role, which just matters a ton. And if we could give like a bonus tip here, then I want to tell anyone who's listening, when you give your presentation in the on-site that you hopefully get, start with why you're there. Start with why you care, and be very introspective about it and dig deep. Give that really the meaningful reason why all of this stuff that you're visiting and looking at and contemplating about joining this team, showcase why it matters to you. It makes a huge difference in how people perceive you, and I think it'll make you much more likely to get the offer in the end.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've interviewed folks who show that passion, and I've definitely interviewed folks who show me that passion, even if they might not have the top skill set of all the candidates. If they show that passion and potential for growth and they're willing to learn, that to me means much more than someone who's just coming here with a lot of skill but doesn't really care about it.
Yeah. Someone told me, and it's true, you can teach skill, you can't teach passion.
I like that. Absolutely. So those are things to consider in terms of where you should apply. What's the second thing, Noam? What's the second thing people should ask about?
So the second question is how? How do I apply? And I think that at a broad level, people understand that referrals are the way to go these days. I'll just explain that quickly. There are essentially three methods that companies use to recruit people. The first and very powerful one is passive recruiting. So if you've been around in this industry for long enough, even if it's just one role that you've been in for a while, you'll probably be getting messages from recruiters saying something like, "Hey, I noticed you've been at wherever for a couple of years now. Do you think I have this role that's open? Do you think you might be interested in getting coffee, doing a chat, and seeing whether you'd be interested?" So that's passive recruiting, and it happens a lot, certainly here in Silicon Valley, typically. And that's great if you have some experience already, and people are interested in you. When you're early in your career, you probably won't be passively recruited. The second method is simply applying through LinkedIn, applying through various job boards, whichever they are. But that at some point just became almost completely irrelevant, I would say. And the reason is probably that companies are receiving hundreds, if not thousands, of resumes for each position, and we just literally can't go through everyone, and so many of the resumes might be not a good fit or don't meet the basic requirements for the position, which leaves companies and hiring managers with the third option, which is really very common these days, which is referrals. We rely on people already working with us to suggest other people who are talented and marvelous, and they've known them in some cases for years, and they can speak to their qualities and how good they might, how well they might perform in the role. And it's a solid way to recruit, and that's how things work. And I think people realize this. I think people realize how important networking is and getting those referrals is. But I think sometimes they miss out on certain, even like very technical aspects of how this works, which really matter. So I'll give an example. The way referrals work is that most tech companies work with one of two HR platforms. We don't have to name them here, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. And within those HR platforms or recruiting platforms, if someone is referred, they are flagged as a referral. And the way they become a referral is because you or me or whoever at the company we get someone's resume, we put that resume in these systems. These systems automatically populate a bunch of fields about this person with their details. We answer a few more questions, such as how well do we know this person, or how would we rank them maybe on certain characteristics. We hit on submit, and that person is now referred. What I've heard a lot of people doing who are interviewing is they apply for a role through, say, LinkedIn or some other job board, and then they get in touch with someone and ask for a referral. Well, it's important to know that that is usually impossible technically. I cannot refer someone, and someone will not be counted as a referral if they've already applied on the website before they talk to me. So that's no good. Don't do that. Don't apply somewhere and then ask for a referral. And this literally happened to me today. Someone. So not going to work. Bad idea. Avoid doing that.
Totally agree. I think there's some vagueness around referrals, and which leads to this kind of process. This is how it works. The person you ask to refer you will have to answer some questions in their system, saying, how well do I know this person? How well do you know their work? And if they don't know you really well, they can't really put in a good word. Also, a referral isn't a guarantee that you're going to get an interview. It has to be a pretty good referral.
I would also, when you understand that people are looking to work with people like you, with kind, humble, fun people who are talented, and they're going to get a substantial amount of money, often thousands of dollars, for referring you, that's a win for everyone involved. And so there's no real reason to feel shy or anxious about getting in touch, asking for those referrals, because we all want the same thing. We're all in this together. And I'm personally always happy to help people if they show a little bit of willingness and hard work and real interest in the role and a passion for what we're up to. Then great. Happy to refer those people.
I had a question for you, actually. When someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn or however, and they ask you for a referral, how do you get from not knowing the person to referring them? And what tips do you have for those job seekers?
Yeah, so I'll give a personal example, actually. When I was in grad school and decided to apply to tech companies, I first applied to Google and Facebook and I think a few others, Amazon, Microsoft, and a few hours later, I thought to myself, like, what are the chances that those companies would ever get back to me? Why? Like, probably thousands of applicants. No way would they get back to me. And putting aside what actually ended up happening, that led me to apply to even more places. And one of them was Airbnb. Now, I did not know anyone at Airbnb, but I knew someone who knew someone at Airbnb. And that friend of mine who was working at Facebook at the time was kind enough to introduce me to this person at Airbnb. What I did then was email her with a lot of information about myself and what I care about and why Airbnb is an exciting opportunity for me and of great interest to me. And I think my passion and my interest in the role and my belief in what's going on at Airbnb and maybe some other things came through that email, and she ended up referring me. Later on, when I was already at Airbnb, this person, my referrer, also became my manager, which was lovely, and it ended up working out. I think that if you want for people to advocate for you, and people who refer you are advocating for you, you need to advocate for yourself. You need to think, again, really deeply about why you want to be there and represent that. Don't waste people's time. Give them the information they need to really say to themselves, wow, this person is nice and polite and clearly talented and clearly interested in the role and passionate about what we're up to. And sure, like, we'd be very lucky for them to join the team. So why not refer them?
Yeah.
And I mean, there are other things we could talk about. Like, does it matter if your referrer is within the team or the group or the type of work you'd be doing if you joined? Could you get a referral from anyone? So, for example, if you're a user researcher, UX researcher, if you get a referral from an engineer or a data scientist, is that not as good as a referral from a user researcher? My answer to that would be, when you're getting a referral from someone who is not in your field, not in your area, not in the group you're applying to, what you're getting is a referral. And that's, again, helpful because it puts your application higher in the metaphorical pile than others. But when you get a referral from someone who's in the same team, group, area, whatever, hopefully you're also getting an advocate. Hopefully that person might also Slack message the recruiter or email the hiring manager or talk to a few people a bit in more depth about your qualities and how good you could potentially be in this team and what a great fit it is and so forth and so forth. And what you really want these days, because so many people are getting referrals, is that next level advocate referral. So
yeah, I love that. I learned a lot from your story you just shared right now. You did a lot of things we kind of mentioned: asking a friend, showing the passion. Here's about me. Here's why I want to do this. Here's why this role excites me. I would say that's so the right way to go about referrals. What are some wrong ways? What are some don'ts of referrals, would you say?
So one of the reasons we even need referrals in the first place is, again, that in some cases, companies are being literally buried in resumes from people who aren't a good fit for the roles they're applying to. They don't meet the basic requirements. If you're asking for a referral, you have to make sure that you not only meet, but hopefully exceed the basic requirements of the role. It's impossible to advocate for someone, or even just to refer them technically, if you see that this person is not a good fit and it just isn't the right role for them. So you don't want to be wasting people's time, because eventually it will catch up to you. And it's better to really just deeply think before you ask for that referral. Am I truly the right fit for this role? Is this role for me? Is this role similar to what I'm already doing, or maybe one step up but not 10 steps up, or a completely different area? This seems basic, but it happens all the time. Another thing I would suggest people avoid doing is, typically in tech companies, there are kind of rules around how often you can apply for a role. So if you apply for a role, and it doesn't matter how you apply, and you get rejected, then you probably need to wait between 6 months to a year, sometimes longer, before you apply again. I've had people come to me asking for referrals who were just rejected from the role they're applying to. If you've been rejected, then you have to wait, and there's really no getting around that. It's not the right time to ask for a referral for that same position you just got rejected from. And again, maybe some of these things seem clear or even obvious, but they're not, based on my experiences. So just think about some of these things.
Yeah, shedding the light on how these processes work, referrals and recruitment, will really help set the expectation for the job candidate and what they do and what steps they can take that matches the expectations of the hiring team.
Yeah, for sure. I would also say my advice to people asking for referrals is give your potential referrers the information they absolutely need. So attach your resume or links to your LinkedIn or other websites, profiles, blogs, whatever it is you have. But attach that to your note and then add some color to that. We can always read your resume or glance over your LinkedIn afterwards, but what would be really helpful is for us to understand just a bit more deeply, again, why it is you're applying, or something special about you which isn't mentioned in all of the other documents. It helps us as referrers to advocate for you and kind of internalize why it would be a great idea to help you get your foot in the door at the company. So that's an extra step you can take to increase your chances of a successful referral and to make the sort of impression you want to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just mentioned something that I think is really important. You said, give us all the things to help us get you into the role that fits best for you. And I think the misconception of job candidates, including myself when I first started looking for jobs in this field, is that the jobs you're applying for they're trying to reject you rather than to accept you. But I think the best hiring teams or recruiters find as many reasons as possible to get to a yes, rather than finding reasons to get you to a no. If that is the case, then that's probably not a place you want to be at.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about where should I apply, what places might fit for us. Now, how that process works, how should I apply? We kind of talked about that. It's been really useful to hear about that. Now, where should I set the bar on presenting myself and how I present myself?
This thing I'm about to say, this tip, I think it's the most important tip I give people who I mentor or speak to. And I think if we all hold ourselves to this bar, it'll increase our chances quite a bit of getting the roles that we want. So in a sentence, the bar for me, both as an interviewee and as an interviewer, by the way, is that it should feel almost like you are already on the team you are interviewing. And this is especially true if you are a researcher, because most of us researchers, we are researchers not just by practice, not just because of the titles we have. We are researchers at heart. We are curious people, and we research everything. And as a hiring manager for researchers, I expect researchers to do deep research into the roles they're applying for. I expect people to research everything, the company, the mission and the values and everything around that, the goals that the company has, the team, the people on the team, your interviewers, the competition, the market, the trends, the news, every single thing. If you do that to the extent I expect, when you come into interview, it will feel almost as if you're already on the team with us. You just know everything that's going on so deeply. You understand your interviewers, you have rapport with them, you understand what the company is currently kind of grappling with and trying to tackle, you understand the roadmap. It's just an incredible experience as an interviewer to encounter people like that who seem so prepared, so ready for the role that they could start tomorrow and you probably wouldn't even notice they're new.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I expect this as an interviewer is that we live in an age where this information is available to you. And I expect people to tap into that. When it comes to your interviewers, for example, most of your interviewers will have some online presence. They might be on YouTube. They might write Medium articles. They might have presentations on SlideShare or something. They probably have a LinkedIn account and maybe a Twitter account and maybe other social media. And you can understand your interviewers at a really deep level before you ever meet them. Maybe they've published academic articles. Maybe there's a bunch of things you can tap into.
Yeah.
And by understanding your interviewers ahead of time, it makes it that much easier to build rapport with them, to connect, to find helpful and great questions to ask them. It's just such an effective tactic. I usually take this as far as to even make my presentation look like it's an internal presentation within that company. I'm talking about like fonts and the color palette and everything. Everything should feel as if you're already there. It's a very powerful, honestly, psychological trick, but that's okay. It's okay to use psychological tricks sometimes to make people feel as if they're almost confused. Like, what is going on right here? Am I interviewing you, or are we just having another team meeting talking about research? By the way, I first kind of thought of this when I was interviewing for Facebook at the time, and they did something very different than the other companies I had on-sites with. They asked me to propose a research project, a hypothetical research project about something at Facebook, whereas other companies were asking me to present my own research. Having to come up with a hypothetical research project, this is a tough task, and it forced me to really dive very deeply into what was going on at Facebook at the time, what the big kind of the top three goals were, and what the mission was, and what my interviewers were up to, and just all of these things. And I realized that when you do that, you will often find success in interviews because it just makes such an impact. So that's how this all started for me.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that Facebook interview question, and it's great because it shows, have you done your homework on them? And if you pick one hypothetical project, why does it matter to you? Why did you pick that one? Does it relate to the team you're applying to? And maybe with Facebook, it's when you're applying generally, you're applying to all of Facebook, but really they're looking for, have you done some homework on us a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's great, because I think I just had an interview recently, and I read everything about the team and the hiring manager, and I brought up some previous research that this hiring manager had done in the first place, and he asked, "Oh, what do you think about it?" So we got to be able to talk about it, and his ears perked up because I think he was ready to kind of go through the gamut of the regular interview questions until you kind of just build the rapport with them. Wow, this guy did some homework. That's good.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I think the bar you want to hit, where you're surprising people, you're almost shocking people with how much you already know. And if you notice that awe, that surprise, then you're doing something right, because they were not expecting you to hit that level of knowledge and understanding, and you did. And if that doesn't work out, then I'd be very surprised.
But I love that point of it just seemed like you're already working there. I like that a lot. Great points. It was such a pleasure and honor to have you and your knowledge and sharing those nuggets of gold with the viewers.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And hey, lovely researchers, guess what? Noam has his own YouTube channel, which I'll link in the description below, where he gets to talk with industry leaders in UX all the time. I love his channel as well, so go check it out. The link is in the description. Thank you so much, Noam. Again, it was such a pleasure. Hope you're staying safe during these times. Hope everyone else is staying safe. Make sure to subscribe to his channel. Subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, smash the like button. Take care, everybody.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay. Mad love. Peace.